BLUELOCK's U20 match has finally started airing. Did it live up to the hype? Did the animation improve? What should we expect for the rest of the season? There is just as much hype as there are questions. We are finally here at what everyone's been waiting for, the best arc of BLUELOCK. What do people think of it? What's the best and worst moments? We got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Episode 6 is the first of the U20 match we actually see. Everyone has buckled in their seatbelts waiting for this ride, and it's finally here. We actually get some gameplay this episode as well. However, this episode was mostly preparation for the U20 match, and I gotta say, they absolutely delivered. I think the hype and build-up they created for this match, the environment for it, was just perfect. It really shows how big of a match it is, with everyone talking about the game, people taking their seats, the chanting in the background, players doing their warm-ups. All of it was super good. This is all anime-only scenes for BLUELOCK. They added these scenes in which weren't in the manga, and I'm so glad that they did. For the manga, it kind of abruptly cuts from the third selection straight to the match and the kickoff, but I think the pacing here is actually really good. It builds up the importance of the match and how popular it is. You have Itoshi Sai in here, the unknown BLUELOCK players. Your grandma probably knows about this match. BLUELOCK Bear walking around. The hype was just here for this episode. And I just gotta give a direct shout out to that walkout scene. Man, that was actually goosebumps. The anticipation building up, that scene was just perfect. You also had the OST in the background, as well as the cheering. I think that adds so much to an already amazing manga moment. This is the one thing I think the anime does beautifully, and that's building up hype. Even though it wasn't perfectly adapted like the manga, which I've seen a lot of people talk about, I think the moment itself was still done pretty beautifully. It is also one of the best panels, by the way, and it was colored beautifully by colorists, so even trying to surpass that is hard. I think they did deliver here. This episode made you feel like you are getting something from the anime. This buildup wasn't in the manga, the cheering, music, all of it was super hype. But we aren't here just for preparations. We gotta talk about the actual match itself, which we do end up seeing in this episode. Granted, it was like 2 minutes of gameplaying and then leaving us on a cliffhanger, but more content can give us a bigger picture of everything else, like the animation, the pacing, all the important stuff for an anime. We first start off with the kickoff and then the first attack from BLUELOCK, as well as defense from the U20 squad. Right out of the gate, in terms of animation, which is the big question on everyone's mind for BLUELOCK, did it improve or did it get worse? Especially because it was a talked about huge problem in the previous episodes, and I gotta say, I don't think the animation improved. Even though most of this episode was just preparations, so no actual animation or movement was needed, like we don't need to put all of our animation into Nagi waking up. The times they did use movement or animations, it was the exact same, so players became pictures, no movement for the characters, the only movement was in the ball. If you really look at it, to be honest, there was actually like zero movement during the game playing. For example, Isagi and Rin passing to each other, Chigiri and Bachira moving up, or Aiku defending the ball. There was actually more movement in the characters' hairs than the actual game playing, so there is movement, just not the right movement. A really huge one was Aiku, who jumped up and blocked the pass from Bachira. There was no build up to it, like we don't see Aiku jumping or Isagi running up. Isagi literally isn't even moving, and when Aiku actually headers the ball, there's no animation on it. It's just two pictures, the ball and him moving. They didn't even animate him falling or landing. It just cut to a scene of him on the ground, which is exactly the case in the manga. And for an anime adaptation, that's what separates it from a manga, the fact that it comes to life and we see the movements actually happening. So I don't know if we're beating the colored manga anime allegations anymore. It's kind of becoming true with the lack of movement. This episode didn't really need a lot of movement though. There wasn't a whole lot of game playing. It was just preparations mostly, which is a pretty scary thing for multiple reasons. The game playing we did see those 2 minutes was the same picture-like animation that we saw in the third selection, and now that we're past all the preparations for the U20 match, we are only getting a game playing for the next episodes, which might mean the rest of the episodes are gonna be like the 2 minutes that we saw in this episode, and that means that the whole 24 minutes is gonna be that animation. I've seen a lot of people jump the gun already and talk about how the animation improved in this episode just due to the first scenes that we got, but if you look closely, that really isn't the case. The community reaction was very positive for this episode, and that is a good thing, but it may be raising people's hopes too high. Public opinion swayed made so quickly just from this episode, there was a lot of people already saying that the animation is way better, they saved the budget, and that everyone else is wrong about the animation. As much as I want to be positive, to be honest, this is giving me the exact same vibes as episode 1. Episode 1 of season 2 was a build-up episode, and that was good. They did the lighting good, introductions, everything was pretty good about that episode, but there was no actual football playing for that episode. It gave everyone false hope, and people started saying that the animation was good for season 2. Come time for the actual football playing though, episode 2 proved everyone wrong. It was just no movements, PNGs, everyone was saying this was a slideshow. And unfortunately, I'm thinking episode 6 is kind of the same case here. We don't get any game playing, but the build-up and hype is good, just like episode 1. However, that doesn't mean that the animation improved. I think a lot of people are getting those two mixed up though. Hype doesn't equal animation improving. Your personal enjoyment doesn't ignore the fact that this is still a PNG. And we see that with the very small glimpse of the match we see. It's the exact same as the previous episodes. Obviously, it is up to you though. I always say your personal enjoyment is what matters. If you can enjoy it with everything going on, then it really doesn't matter. I'm just talking about animation wise. Did we expect much though? Nah. From the trailer and everything, I already knew to have my expectations low. But putting on the tinfoil hat, I fear this may be the exact same case of false hope. Even though the episodes leading up to it is really good, the hype is there, they are not delivering on that hype. Let's move away from the animation for a second and talk about something just as important, and that is the pacing. Pacing really makes or breaks an anime in my opinion, because they can just rush out a whole lot of content that we don't even understand what's going on, or it could be so slow that scenes will get cut out from an anime. If you guys don't remember, season 1 towards the end suffered from pacing issues. They had to cut out Shido versus Kunigami and the results of that, as well as rush the whole World 5 game. And since we have 8 episodes left, from what we see, is the pacing going to be bad or good for the U20 match? And in my opinion, I think the pacing will be good. BLUELOCK has done pretty good with pacing up until this point, besides the ending of season 1. I won't spoil for anime onlys, but with 8 episodes left and the manga having 36 chapters, that leaves around 5 chapters or so for every episode. And since we are getting into the actual match, adapting 5 chapters per episode could be good so that every episode is action-packed. I don't think we're getting any cut-out content just like season 1, but I think it will end sooner than expected for the manga fans. We won't delve into anything else besides this match. Getting back to this specific episode though, we have to talk about the best and worst moments. What's on everyone's mind? Let's start off with the good news. The best moment was easily the hype and build-up that they created. I think the new additional scenes were amazing for the anime, and that walkout definitely takes the cake. That was super good. The cheering adds so much to the watch experience that the manga doesn't really get, because it's a manga. On top of that, you have OSTs and songs in the background building up tension, Isagi's heart beating. You just get so much hype from this episode. And like I said, the community reaction to this episode was very positive. Everyone was talking about how hyped they were because of this episode. I just don't want it to be false hope, because the worst moment of the episode was definitely the actual game playing or animation. Most of the scenes are just players standing still or being dragged across the screen with only the ball moving. And the other scenes where we do see movement, like the players walking out, it was just CGI, which I know a lot of people don't like. I personally don't really care unless it becomes really excessive, which I hope isn't the case, but the movement is definitely the worst part of the episode. I do gotta highlight Bachira's dribbling though. Even though it was mostly CGI, we actually see some movement here. Take it as you want. Maybe the bar is so low that we're celebrating any movement we see. Compared to season 1 though, where this was just the norm, yeah, it's kind of disappointing. But we gotta give props when props are due. Bachira was moving here. In terms of animation though, we really have to remember the trailer, which showcased an actual shot, and even that wasn't moving. So if an actual shot, a goal, the most important part of a football match, wasn't even animated, I don't think the rest will be either. Anyways, that's everything you need to know about this episode and the U20 match. We're really getting into the match with the next episode, so everything will be decided then. If you made it to the end though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.